Do you mind if we don't talk a lot about the book and about other stuff?
Talk about anything you feel
I want to
like.
talk to you about when you bought the railroad car.
How do you know about that?
Well, I have people that find these things out.
Yeah.
You bought an 1890s railroad car?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. You lived in it for some time.
Well, not really lived in it. I bought it, my wife and I were going across the country years ago on one of the Zephyrs. We got into Chicago, you know, that delay there, and a vice president of the Burlington Road came down in Al Rung, and he was looking for a vice president of time, but he couldn't find him, so he settled for me. And so we started talking and drinking, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'd like to have a caboose. He said, well, sometimes we sell off old business cars. And I said, I don't know what a business car is. He said, well, it's like a sort of a modest palace car. Anyway, a few months later...
It's like an observation...
Oh, it has the whole thing.
Yeah, everything.
And I said, well, I could not afford that. He said, well, sometimes they go for as little as $6. I said, well, I couldn't afford that, because I was flat broke then. And finally, about 3 weeks later, I got a sheaf of 8x10 glossies and pictures of an 1890 car, built by the Burlington Road, laying in Galesburg, Illinois, for sale. And mahogany paneling inside, mahogany tongue and groove outside, bronze observation platform, brass beds, galley, the works. $2,000, huh? Yes, sir.
Where is it?
The government took it from my daughter, because I gave it to my daughter years ago after I'd used it for a while, and I've owed the government a little money for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave it to my daughter because she was with a nice guy, and I thought they needed a home, and the government thought it was a ploy, you know, to avoid the,
Tax,
thing. So
yeah.
the car right now is laying, 3 miles northeast of San Quentin Prison, and it's impounded more or less. It has been vandalized, and that's the end of that. Why, you a car man?
I love trains.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
an absolute nut,
yeah,
but
yeah.
especially something like that. To
Yeah.
think now that, you see, you know what gets me? Washington is always talking about history, and all these people down there are talking about preserving parts of Americana. Now, here you have something that may not have great monetary value. It cost you $2,000, but it's a part of our country, and the railroad, the boom time, the iron horse, and here they take it, and you'd think that they would preserve something like this, or to make certain
the
that
IRS is not noted for its delectable taste in antiquities. You know, they don't really care much about anything, do they? I mean,
well, I don't know about that. At this time of the year, I really hate to get on the IRS's case. You know what I mean? Because they're going to be checking us all pretty soon.
Well, won't be for the first time, will it?
No,
sir.
No. But that's too bad. What did you ride in this car at all? Did you ever hook it?
Yeah, bought her, like I said, she was in the roundhouse in Galesburg.
Good shape?
Beautiful shape. She'd been the private property of which a business car essentially was, of what you used to call a division superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
And this old man always thought it would be his. And so he took pains to see that she was not modernized, you know, particularly. But when it came time for him to retire and get it, why, he died. And so now the car came up for grabs, and I rode her out from Galesburg to Oakland with one friend. And we left Galesburg at the end of a train was 1.25 miles long, a freight. We're back by the caboose. And I must tell you, my friend, it was one of the great experiences of my life. I didn't sleep 5 hours, Tom, from Chicago to Oakland. Huh?
My idea of a great trip would be to have them hook it on the back of a pretty fast freight or fast passenger Amtrak and go from here to Los Angeles in your own private car with 4 or 5 people that you really liked.
And I think, you know, in terms of the thing you mentioned about the heritage of our land, in a way, if you go on the end of a freight train, you see, it is much more magical than at the end of a passenger, you know, because the passenger train's going too fast. But I remember going through, let's say, Colfax, Iowa, in there somewhere. Maybe 25 miles an hour on a July day with the sound of the locust, you know, and a big train up ahead of you and the caboose behind you. And we'd stop, of course, at a division point. And the old-timers would come aboard. And I could say, well, come on, let's, why don't we have a snort? Oh, Rule G, Rule G. And so nobody would take a drink for about, 10 or 15 minutes, and somebody would say, well, Rule G, you know, and it was marvelous. It was marvelous.
Plus, you get to see a part of America that you don't see on Super, because the tracks go through what is now, I guess, the
But above
shading.
all, you go so slowly. You go so slowly, and I think then you. And of course, it's your car. I mean, you're in the open. The terrible thing about trains, I think, in this country is that you cannot open a window.
Correct.
You get in a bloody roomette or whatever kind of a bedroom, and you lie there, and what you got somebody else's cigar smoke. The great thing about Europe, you know the trains in Europe much?
Well, I had one experience on a European train, and I wasn't that impressed, but I must say this was a day trip on Le Mistral, the train that goes from Paris to Nice.
Yeah. Well, the great trip is at night, of course, to get in one of those old wagon-lit, the old blue and gold cars, you know, with your own bedroom. You know, and you can roll that window down, and you can put on the headphones, and you can take a hit, and you can take a drink or whatever you want to do.
You can take a what?
Take a hit.
A hit.
And you let it rip, you know? And, well, no, I've been doing that for about 8 years now, off and on, and it just heightens the whole intensity of the experience for me. You know?
The only, about did you have your own cook when you made this trip?
No. You mean on the car?
Yeah.
No.
Or did you cook your own stuff?
No, I had one friend, and I guess he cooked a little for himself, but I was busy with some. At that point, that was in 1965, and I had not discovered I didn't know there was anything called cannabis, you know. And may I smoke?
Sure.
Thank you.
As long as they're legal.
Yeah, it's legal enough. And will you have one?
No, thanks. I just finished one. I'm trying to quit the damn things.
I am too. I try every day.
In fact, during the news tonight, about 6:45, I stomped one on the floor and I said, "That's it. I'm not going to smoke anymore." So I put them away, and I just lit one up here when you came in. But that's it for the rest of the hour. No.
Yeah. Well, I admire the fact that the pressure you're under. You know, that's where the heat comes. You know, I mean, it's not very difficult to smoke if you don't let the heat get on yourself. You know,
True.
The minute we get going up here, you know, I find that with trying to write, because I'm about as Johnny-come-lately a writer as one's about to find, you know. But hell, to publish a novel, your first novel when you're 60 is...
Yeah, but haven't you been fooling around with writing since you were a kid?
Yeah, but I never really bore down on it. And when I wrote my first book, I said to my wife when I got through, because I was drinking very hard, and I said, you know, rather than continue this, I will simply force myself to write, you know, without these cigarettes and without the booze. So I went about 2 or 3 months. Didn't write a word. I really couldn't get started. Finally, I said, well, hell with it. I would rather go die, for hell's sake, in 10 months and maybe write a few hundred more pages. And I started this again, you know, and chain drinking the Lapsang Souchong tea and putting the booze in it when it felt like it, and away I went, you know. Terrible thing. I guess that's a crutch, isn't it? But it seems to be true.
Listen, one other thing about the train, I could talk about the trains for the whole night here, but when you hook that on, how much do they charge you to haul your car?
I think the rate, if you had a car and did what you said, let's say maybe the end of an Amtrak train, you can figure 50 cents a mile. In this particular case, Al Rung, the man who made the whole deal possible, he was so generous, for some obscure reason, because railroads are not noted for their generosity either, that they gave me a free ride all the way to Denver, and then from there on into Oakland, I think I paid $700 or something like that.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Gleason does that a lot. He has a private car, I think, Jackie Gleason.
Yeah, he has one of the new ones. I mean, the 20s, you know, like the presidential car.
Yeah,
you know,
I rode in one that was on the Santa Fe when they put that new track up through the El Cajon Pass up the other side of San Bernardino in California. And it was, like you say, the divisional car. And they had the galley and the dining room with the crystal, and they had a little thing at the back of the observation platform, a speedometer, so that you'd know how fast you were going. It was fabulous. Well, I'm advertising for a trip here. Let me pause for these words from our affiliated stations, and be right back with Mr. Sterling Hayden.